We're here in Texas because I'm teaching both. I did 2 days this last week, and I've got 2 days coming up this next week at the Holdsworth Center in Austin. And I put a little bit of this in the newsletter, but the Holdsworth Center was created by the uh, founder and patriarch of HEB Grocers. Here in Texas. Is it Austin or
It's probably Texas wide.
Texas? Well, I know it's Texas wide. I'm not sure where HEB was founded, but
I think it was founded in South Texas, farther here, and I think maybe the big offices are in San Antonio.
maybe San Antonio. Anyway, from anything I can tell, can you hear me, Tennessee? Yeah. Okay. From anything I can tell, because all the feedback I get when you mention HEB is everybody's like, I love them. What a great company. And I don't know anybody in California feel that way about Safeway. I mean, it's like, yeah, or Vaughn's. But somehow HEB in this part of the country, and even my son-in-law, Luis Ortega Govella, there's an HEB in Tampico, Mexico, where his family is from and his parents live. And he was like, I love HEB. So this Texan brand and this Texan family has successfully crossed the border and become well loved in Mexico as well, which is saying something, right? Not all Americans or American brands or Texans are necessarily top of the list in Mexico, or at least you might not think so. But so anyway, this beloved brand, and they still are privately held, I believe. And Charles Butt, who is the patriarch and leader of the family, founded this center, Holdsworth Center, to further advance the excellence of public education in Texas, and built this beautiful campus that has lodging and facilities to feed people, and classrooms and auditoriums and meditation areas, and I mean, just stunning. And so I was brought here to teach last week, and again, as I said, 2 days this coming week. Last week with principals from high schools all over Texas, and this week with superintendents and district leaders and the higher level kind of C-suite of Texas education. We're in over the 2 weeks, we're taking like 120 people through this training. And the training consists of teaching about purpose and the role of purpose in being a great leader, and how to reclaim your purpose, things like role crafting and values in a goal-driven life, or goals as milestones in a values-driven life. And then wisdom module, where we teach about mastering your emotions rather than them mastering you, and just how to approach your life and work with more wisdom. Growth mindset versus fixed mindset. Some of you out there may know, and Paul, I'm sure you do, Sharma, I'm sure you do, Carol Dweck's work around growth mindset versus fixed mindset, and that's your ability to see yourself as changeable, your character as something that's not fixed in time, or who you are and what you are capable of is not being fixed in time and space, but having the ability to grow. And then, there's biological sciences now backing up that psychological point of view, epigenetics and neuroplasticity. We talked a little bit about that last week. And then the final two modules that I end the 2 days of teaching in are on love and self-realization. What is the role of love in leadership, and how do you apply that in a way so that it's not just like, oh, I love you, but how is it something that is accessible and effective. In that, I'm here in Texas, so I use the story of Laurie being a George W. Bush hater, when he was in office, and then our opportunity to meet him as a painter in Texas, and this wonderful picture of Laurie and the former president about to leave me to go on a date. It looks like but as an example of finding ways to connect with people beyond your fixed opinions, beliefs, politics, and finding a way to connect and to fall in love, appropriate love, I hope. But anyway, so love, and then ending on self-realization, which is great because I get to teach meditation, to potential leaders, and we go at it a couple different ways and look at, and I actually lead them into zazen and counting breaths, that level of our practice, and then also to be fair, do some visualization, meditation, and this time I actually decided to take a gamble and play with identity and do that plastic bag exercise that we did a while ago, where you take the different aspects of your identity and start putting them in the plastic bag and dropping them. And that was quite interesting to do with the group that walked in with no expectation around that. Anyway, I'm sharing that in all the detail because you can see how it aligns with our practice and aligns with our teaching. It's been just wonderful to be able to share at that level. And the Mentora Institute that I'm working with in doing this teaching, the founder there, Hitendra Wadhwa, who founded the Mentora Institute, he is a lifelong disciple of Yogananda. And so a lot of the teachings come out of, his SRF basis and understanding and how the world works. So we've been able to cross-pollinate and I've added things to the curriculum and I've learned things from the curriculum. But again, a great example of how do you start stepping across boundaries and working with different people. And then, of course, it being Texas, I think it's fair to say there's a lot of Christianity around, a lot of people with deep Christian practices. So here you're going self-realization and meditation, and how is that received in a Christian context, and how do you speak to that without alienating the secularists in the room? It's a funny dance. Hey, Galen, do you want to do me a favor? I'm sure other people on the call could do it, but would you define a bodhisattva for me? Your understanding of
bodhisattva I want to sound really smart when I say this. The bodhisattva is the epitome of Mahayana Buddhism, as opposed to the arhat, which is the epitome of Hinayana or Theravadan Buddhism. And essentially, Theravadan Buddhism is based on individual enlightenment. And in the Mahayana, the Bodhisattva being the ideal. I have to use my own language.
Yeah, please.
The whole idea is to get everybody else on the bus before you get on yourself.
I love that definition. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, no. And Gabriel just posted that Google says a person who is able to reach nirvana, but delays doing so out of compassion in order to save suffering beings. But Galen, I actually love your personal definition there, is like, getting everyone else on the bus before you get on the bus. And, there's great examples of bodhisattvas in our world all the time. Certainly, a lot of the first responders during the pandemic have fallen into that category. And I would say, to a person, the principals and educators and the people that staff Holdsworth Center that I've been working with this last week, I would place there. Now we all have our failings, yes,
How about moms and dads?
and moms and dads. I mean, this extends out everywhere. Lori says moms and dads, but yeah, I get it, but my goal is to help other people get it. And I would say these teachers, educators, principals, staff at Holdsworth Center are definitely in that space, and they're all there. I was like, how do we deliver this? How do we work with the children and families of Texas and make this work better? The big this. And so it's just wonderfully inspiring to be, able to work with people with that point of view. And of course, there's a lot of bodhisattvas on the Zoom screen and in the two rooms. Okay? So we're, just speaking into that space as well. I wanted to turn to case 89 of the Blue Cliff record, okay, with that definition in mind. Okay, both the formal definition and Galen's, hey, get on the bus, I'd like you to be on the bus. Case 89 of the Blue Cliff Records. It's called Hands and Eyes All Over. The introduction, beautiful. Even if your whole body were eyes, you still couldn't see it. Even if your whole body were ears, you still couldn't hear it. Even if your whole body were a mouth, you still couldn't say it. Even if your whole body were mind, you still couldn't perceive it. Leaving aside the whole body for the moment, without eyes, how would you see? Without ears, how would you hear? Without a mouth, how would you speak? Without a mind, how would you perceive? If you can unfurl a pathway here, you'll be a fellow student with the ancient Buddhas. But leaving aside study for the moment, tell me, from whom do you study? Really one of the nicest introductions out of all the prefaces and introductions. Just beautiful. I was reading it last night going, wow. But then I'm a Zen geek, right? So anyway, but I think it's beautiful. The main case of the koan, the example, Ungan asked Dogo, what does the Bodhisattva of great compassion use so many hands and eyes for? Dogo said, it's like someone reaching back for a pillow in the middle of the night. Other translations, it's like a man reaching behind his head for a pillow in the middle of the night. Ungan said, I understand. Dogo says, how do you understand? Ungan said, all over the body are hands and eyes. Dogo said, you've said quite a bit, but you've only expressed 80%. Ungan said, what about you? Dogo said, throughout the body are hands and eyes. Throughout the body are hands and eyes. Now, I'm sure many of you have seen the image of Kuan Yin or Kanon, the Bodhisattva of compassion, right? The archetype of compassion. And often that statue has got many arms and eyes all over the body, right? So that's what this question about hands and eyes. What does the Bodhisattva of great compassion use so many hands and eyes for? Like, why are there so many hands and eyes in this representation of the Bodhisattva? The verse, which follows the main case, says, all over the body, right? Throughout the body, right? bringing it up is still 100,000 miles away. Spreading its wings, the rock soars over the clouds of the 6 compounds, propelling the wind to churn the waters of the 4 oceans. What speck of dust suddenly arises? What wisp of hair hasn't stopped? Do you not see? The pearls of the net drape a pattern, reflections multiplied in each other. Where do the hands and eyes on the staff come from? Tisk. Okay. So there's a lot here. There's a lot here. One of my favorite koans, especially, coming out of this week and going into the next week and working with all of you. What about all those hands and eyes? Why, Kuan Yin? Why all these hands and eyes? And then this question of why, what are they used for? And then this somewhat curious answer. It's like reaching for a pillow behind your head in the middle of the night. So, any thoughts about what that line is getting at? It's like reaching for a pillow behind your head in the middle of the night. Hey, Gabriel, you're nodding your head no, so that's a yes. So unmute yourself for a moment. You want to just mute yourself for a moment.
I'm unmuted.
Yeah, I know. Mute yourself for a moment. Okay, could you unmute yourself? All right. Go ahead.
Looking, like maybe there's something about like reaching for comfort in like the dark of the night. I don't know. I'm so lost with this koan.
Yeah. Can you point outside the window? Yeah. All right. So how much effort is that taking to mute yourself, to unmute yourself, to point out the window?
Not a lot.
Not a lot. So if you're sleeping in the middle of the night and you want to adjust the pillow, how much story and effort's in that?
A similar amount.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it. Got any head nods yet, or are we still going sideways? All right. This speaks to just the naturalness of how natural is it. Okay. Gabriel, how natural or unnatural is it for you to care about another person who's in need, a friend that's in need?
Very natural.
Yeah. Very natural. Right? Now, when you're stopped at a stoplight in LA and somebody's got a sign that says, "Help, I need money," and puts their hand out, how natural or unnatural is it to respond?
Natural.
Yeah. Do you always hand money across?
Like when there's a kid around, usually, but not always.
Yeah. But anyway, there's a degree, right, of when our thought gets in there and when we start analyzing things and when we start looking at it. Anyway, that's one way to look at that first response. It's like pointing out the window. It's like lifting up the coffee cup. Okay? As a pure bodhisattva, as someone living in this world without the story, without the barriers in place, with the bowl washed, all of those metaphors, caring and feeling other people's suffering and wanting to do something about it is as natural as breathing. Right? And stuff gets in the way. Right? And stuff gets in the way. So that's a first level of caring for others. Okay, but now what about all these hands and eyes? This response it's like hands and eyes are all over the body, right? All over the body are hands and eyes. Now, if you are that person wanting other people to get on the bus before you get on the bus, who are you trying to get on the bus? Where are they? What does that look like? If you really are in that state of everyone on the bus before me, then hands and eyes see everywhere and touch everywhere, because everything, that compassionate awareness, is everything. Where could it possibly stop and end? Where could it possibly stop and end? It's a pretty damn good answer. All over the hands. All over the body, hands and eyes. Gabriel says we're going to need a big bus. Yeah, it's a very big bus. It's a very big bus. So then what happens is you have this dance between the two masters, and what's going on there? Pretty good. 80%. Anybody that's worked on koans has definitely faced this with the teacher. Okay, but this is also where we can work with each other and keep upping the game, whether we're working on koans or not. That's good. A little deeper, a little bit more. How do you extend that out? How do you take that further? And so then, well, how about you? And the answer comes about throughout the body are hands and eyes. Okay, so what's the distinction there? This is very Zen. It was very Zen, right? In the best of ways. On the body, throughout the body. Thoughts? Brenda Lee's hand is going to go for the mute thing. Anybody? Tennessee?
On the body as opposed to throughout the body, like what's the distinction there? What's the importance of that? To me, that says something about being able to see ourselves. I don't know if this is accurate, but to be able to have compassion for others involves a certain level of being able to look into ourselves, see ourselves in others.
It's a nice way to put the level of intimacy.
And also just the sensitization of and awareness.
Yeah. All over the body, hands and eyes still has that little bit of pasted on.
Mm-hmm.
Still has that little bit of pasted on. It's still got a little bit of separation from. We did interview in person here in Texas this morning, because I don't get a chance to do interview in person with anybody here, except when I'm here. And in one of the interviews, it came up this term about being up against it. In Zen we talk about thusness or suchness, or this right here, right now, right? And this term up againstness, up against itness came, and that still has that little bit of you're up against it, right? There's still that I am something and up against something, right? Versus what we try to achieve with our zazen and erasing those barriers so that there's no on, or there's no on something, because the something is us. So one way to look at this distinction is each of them pushing each other further, and it's like, yeah, not just on, that's pretty good, completely throughout. Because if the eyes and ears are every fiber of your being, of your soul, then yeah, Tennessee, that obviously has to include you too, wherever you are in that, right? Because it's everything. It's everything. So there's that. Now, if you go to the verse, Secho kind of calls this, Secho is the person writing the verses and help the commentary on the Blue Cliff record. Secho calls that into question, and people read this differently, right? So people read this in some cases as there's a distinction between on the body, throughout the body, and the throughout the body is closer because it's more intimate and it's throughout and there's no separation and everything we just talked about. Secho kind of goes, bah, even raising the question is 1,000 miles away from the truth, right? You know, so that's like, okay, yeah, that's 98% of the way there. Okay, so what's the last 2%? And from Secho's point of view is go further still. Why the question? Why the distinction? What is on, what is throughout, you know? And so we start getting very, you know, now we're starting to lose our language and lose our bearings. It's kind of nice to lose our bearings now and then. You know, I know that there are moments in teaching at Holdsworth that I've completely lost my bearings, you know, because I'm so in it with everyone and we're so in it together. And so in this, what does it mean to work, to lead, to teach from a place of a fully realized self? When the eyes and hands are throughout the body so that you can't even see the body, what is it like to teach from there? What is it like to lead from there? When the love that you feel in your heart when you first hold a newborn child, when you can expand that love outward so that it includes everything with all those hands and eyes. What does it feel like to lead, to teach, to do all of the different things that we do, to counsel, you know, to code, to act, to paint, to write, to design a garden, to go to school? You know, what is it like to work from that place? What is it like to work from that place? Did this fun thing in the visualization meditation with them, you know, because I like to play to the verge of getting in trouble, and I did get in trouble at one point because that's my nature. But you know, I was talking about that love, and you had everybody visualize the place where they felt at peace and oneness, and like, you know, everything else dropped away. And so, for one woman, this was floating on the back in the middle of the lake with the sound of her family on the boat, you know, and for somebody else it was gardening or cooking or music. Music is a big one for people. Prayer for some people. So go to that place and feel that love and that warmth, that light at the center of your being, and start expanding it outward. Expand it to the person next to you. Expand it to include the table. Expand that warmth and light and love to include the room and Holdsworth Center in Texas, right? And then I said into the rest of Texas, which other people call America, you know. And I got some good laughs, but you know, it was a deliberate play too with where do you draw the boundaries? Where do you draw the line? Where do you draw the line? All these hands and eyes on the body or throughout the body, where does the body begin and end? Where do you hold back compassion and love? Because where do you begin and end? Where do you begin and end? And it's a beautiful thing about Sangha, you know, is that we immediately include each other. But it's also on us to take that practice and extend that circle outward to the rest of the Sangha that other people call their lives, just like the rest of Texas that other people call America. Right? Because we create these distinctions, we create this boundary. And how beautiful would that be if more and more and more of us were extending that out? The other reason we have Sangha is because it can be, and teachers and each other, is that it can be a little disorienting. If your whole body were eyes, you still couldn't see it. If your whole body were ears, you still couldn't hear it. If your whole body were a mouth, you still couldn't say it. And this goes to the Gabriel point out the window, mute, unmute, right? You know, I mean, when you're just doing that, there's no, oh, this is my hand and that's the mute button and there's the window and, you know, it's as natural as you just do. You just breathe. Leaving aside the body, right? The next level. Leave aside even that notion of the body. How do you see without eyes? Just take a moment, take a deep breath. No mirrors. See your own eye. I'm not just being weird here. See your eye. Hear your ear. There's a koan, I think it's Uman, talks about the 6 ungraspables. You know? Can you see your eye? Can you hear your ear? Without a mouth, how do you speak? Show me your mind, and I'll put it to rest. And then you go look for your mind. Go look for your mind. And this is not just to screw with your sense of like, oh no, now how do I operate in the world? But to just look at the definitions and boundaries we put on everything. Because when you really take the definitions and boundaries away, you, as Akasha, can actually love George Bush. It doesn't mean you approve of everything he did. It doesn't mean you condone anything. But you can feel the love or recognize its potential. So I just find this sense of what it is to be a bodhisattva, what it is to walk through the world with all these eyes and hands and no eyes and hands, doing what it is in front of us that needs to be done, operating as teachers, as principals, as artists, as actresses, as therapists, as people leading addiction recovery groups, whatever we're doing. It's just being part of community in Ecuador. Karen, I don't know what you're up to there. We'll have a conversation about that sometime. But I suspect whatever you're up to there, you know, you can take that smile and that spirit we can see in this little box and extend it outward infinitely and have a tremendous effect on the people around you. You know? There's a bit of overwriting in the newsletter because I'm just feeling very inspired and emotional and in love with everybody and everything around me. So I apologize as a writer for overwriting. But, you that drop of wisdom hits the pond and the love can expand outward. That's why we're prajna heart. Love and do it wisely. Be wise and do it with love. Expand that boundary out there throughout the body, our hands and eyes. And then our spirit, our love, our wisdom is like the rock or the dragon soaring over everything and bringing all of the senses and all of the world to life and fanning the ripples and the waves, as in the verse. Then Karen's smile is as powerful as a dragon lifting out up into the sky, and it affects all of the waters and all of the people everywhere. And we all can feel it through our hands and eyes. It went on even a little longer than I thought. I think I'll stop there and see if I haven't bludgeoned you all into a poetic stupor. And see what's there, or see if there's anything else you'd like to add, or see anything that you see in this koan, with all your hands and eyes throughout your body. I'm really, really curious. It's just wonderful to spend time here in Texas, and be back in LA a little bit later this week. But is this? God, I'm going to gush like the newsletter here, But I can't tell you how much you all fuel my life and my practice. And I hope we all do that for each other. Because, whenever I have doubts or questions, all I have to do is spend a moment's time with one of you, in interview, on the screen, chanting, whatever it is. And it fuels me and takes me further into that sky, flapping my wings as best I can. So thank you. Melanie says that the flying priest should stop now. So I'll stop. Anything, anybody? I'll just say it now. I said it to all the people at Holdsworth. I love you all dearly. Okay? All of you. Anyway, over to you for any comments, questions.